This program is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, or cure any illness. Please speak with your doctor when starting a new health program.
Welcome to Wellness Talk. This is George Batista, your host and your wellness advocate. Wellness Talk, as always, is the show that goes over the latest in health and healing, nutrition, supplements, fitness, everything we need to do to take responsibility for our health. And today we have a very special guest and a very special show. Today, we're going to be talking about emotional freedom technique, or what is often referred to as tapping, for stress and anxiety relief, as well as overall wellness. Now we're going to be having a conversation with internationally recognized expert and EFT practitioner Julie Schiffman. Now, for more than 25 years, Julie has counseled thousands of clients using this technique, helping them to break through physical and emotional barriers. Her life-changing YouTube videos have been viewed by more than 4 million times. And her private practice, she uses various energy medicine techniques to help clients from all over the world overcome physical and emotional challenges. And I'm very excited and honored to have her on this program. Welcome to the program, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, let's see, where should we start? So first of all, I want to kind of start where how I found you and found the tapping program. So I actually found you through Dr. Mercola.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it was a number of years ago, and I was a follower of Dr. Mercola for many years. And your video was the first tapping video I actually ever saw.
I think it was the first one out there, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
I love that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, and it completely intrigued me. And I was like, wow, I got to find out more about this. I had no clue that this even existed. And my thing, because I know, Dr. McCullough is a hardcore guy.
Yes, he is.
He's very into this stuff, and I love
He
it. So
is.
I said, if he's going to be endorsing, then this is something that I have to really take a look at. So what I ended up happening is I started to do some research, and that's when I realized there's books about it, and there was stuff out there on it. And then I said, you know what, this is great. This is because, I'm a person that has dealt with anxiety and stress and stuff like that in the past. So I started to, use it in my own life, and it's helped me greatly. So, first, talk a little bit about your background and talk about how you got into the program.
So my background is that I have a master's degree in social work, and initially I was set out to go and provide therapy, cognitive therapy. And so I was doing that. I worked in a high school, and I was working with adolescents with depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. And just flat out cognitive, one-on-one talking, helping kids to, figure out different tools to manage this stuff.
Right.
And I started getting panic attacks, like horrible. I was like fresh out of grad school, right? And I was getting horrible, debilitating panic attacks. And here I am trying, supposedly helping these kids who are suffering. And I could barely function. I could barely get myself through the door. And it was bad. And I was trying to hide it. I had a lot of shame around it. I had a lot of, just a lot of bad feelings around it and whatever. And so I had seen, I'll try to condense this story, but a very close friend of mine, Dr. Darren Weissman, is in the energy healing world. And he's like, come and see me. He's like, we'll do some work around this. I didn't even really know what he did,
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't do tapping with me, but he did energy work, and he touched different parts of my body and did muscle testing and all this stuff. And I didn't know what it was, but I was absolutely fascinated by it. I was like, this is unbelievable. And I'm like, I got to learn this stuff, whatever this is. And he had initially gone to chiropractic school and did acupuncture and all of these things. But I'm like, I'm not going to do that, but I need to learn more about the energy work. So resolved very quickly a lot of the underlying emotional issues that were driving the anxiety, because we know there's always underlying issues there, right?
Yes.
And I went into therapy and that sort of thing, and so resolved it. And then he introduced me actually to Dr. Mercola.
Okay.
who was actually looking for someone. He said, if anyone here is familiar with Dr. Mercola, so he is, one of the largest, well-known holistic doctors
Yeah.
out there, right? And especially his website, he just reaches millions and millions of people. And he said, I can tell everybody in my practice what to eat, what foods to eat, what supplements to take, how to exercise, what kind of sleep to get, but no one really knows how to manage their emotions.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And so he said, I am looking for someone to come in and learn this tapping technique, amongst other things, but mostly tapping, EFT, which looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to work with all of my clients who come in. You're like my chief EFT practitioner, and everybody who comes in has to see me. They have to see a nutritionist, and they have to see someone who does EFT.
Wow.
And so he sent me to learn it, and I'm very grateful to him for that. Learned with Gary Craig and a lot of, amazing practitioners. And so I was really in at the very ground level. This was like the early 90s.
Okay.
So this is like when no one had heard about tapping.
Exactly.
And, I would tell people about it and they're like, what are you, crazy? Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Tapping on my head is going to get rid of my anxiety and my pain and my depression and, everything else. And I'm like, it works. Like, let's just try it. Let's just see what happens. And, by the time people got to Dr. Mercola's office, they had been through every doctor imaginable, right? Like, he was like a last resort in terms of full out holistic, I'm willing to do anything to get better. And so it started doing them with his patients. And we just saw over and over and over again how amazing this very simple technique was.
Yeah.
It's super simple. It's effective. It is, it's really just, it's quick for the most part, depending on what somebody's working on. And it takes some training, but it's also something that someone can do in the moment when they're feeling anxiety, when they're feeling pain, when they're feeling self-doubt or anything else. It's something that someone can do in the moment. I have a ton of videos online on YouTube for free that people can just go on with almost any issue. They can tap along with me, and almost always people will respond, in the comments saying, oh my God, I've never done this before. This really helped in 3 minutes or 5 minutes, so it's been an unbelievable journey. I'm really grateful to know this tool and also be able to share it with anybody and everybody who will listen.
Fantastic. And that's interesting. And by the way, I would say everyone definitely check out your videos online on YouTube, because like you said, you have videos for everything. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe how many videos there were that you actually had put out. But it's interesting that you said about the panic attacks and the anxiety, because I'm pretty open on my show about, my past and things that I've been through, whether it's health challenges or whatever. And I've talked about EFT on this show. I've actually have some articles on my website about it, and I like to talk about different pillars of health. Obviously nutrition and fitness and all that, but stress reduction is one of those things, right? Because you could be eating a great diet and doing all this fitness, but if you're not managing your stress, it's a huge problem.
Huge problem. Detrimental, really. Yes. It could be. Right?
Absolutely. So when I was younger, I went through a lot of stress when I was a kid. My parents had divorced when I was very young. So I was 7 or 8, and then it was a very messy divorce for many years. And unfortunately, I was kind of in the middle of the whole thing, and it caused so much anxiety. And part of it's because I held everything in. I was introverted to begin with, so I held everything in, and it caused, as I got into my teenage years, it caused a lot of panic attacks. Same deal. I sometimes I couldn't go places because I was afraid that I was going to have a panic attack. I'd be in a movie theater and I start feeling panic, and I'm like, oh my God, and it was tough. I even went to therapy for it and everything. And, I think about it now. It's like, wow, if I had something like this at that time, to help me, at least I would have had something that I can go to right away, so that's why, and like you said, it's very simple, and it's something that people can use in the moment. And I think that's one of the things that actually attracted me to it, because it's very simple and can be done in a moment. Now, explain to our listeners and viewers as well, like, the best that you can, like, what is the science behind tapping on these certain points?
Absolutely. So, right, for anybody who's new to this, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why would I tap on my face? As I said, I mean, people would look at me like I had 3 heads, but they were willing to try anything when it got to this point. So, tapping, also known as EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, is an amazing stress management tool that anyone can use at any time. As we said, it's simple, effective, quick. And it's a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology. I mean, that's really the best way to describe it. And it actually physically works to alter your brain, your energy system, and your body all at the same time. And the practice, consists, it really does just look like this,
Right.
very gentle tapping. We don't want to hurt ourselves. It's very gentle with our fingertips on specific, what we call meridians. And meridians are just energy pathways in the body, right? They connect our organs and our glands and our systems. And so you tap on these points while talking through, there are statements and words that we use while we talk through pain or problems or emotions or anxiety or depression or anything else. And this process can help not only to relieve the physical symptoms, but the emotions as well. So I always say it's really a win-win to do this work, because you're not only addressing what you perceive to be the problem, and whether that's knee pain or a headache or, tightness in your chest, or if you're dealing with anxiety or anything else, you're addressing both. So you're addressing the physical part, and you're also addressing the underlying emotional piece, because what happens is when we have unprocessed emotions or unprocessed trauma or just unprocessed stress, things we haven't dealt with, then what happens is it creates a blockage. That energy, because we know emotions are energy, right?
Right.
And so that energy cannot move through your body. If you don't process it, the energy gets stuck. And so what happens is that energy, it finds a place to go. And so what's interesting is that, with the human body, very often organs and glands pick up on particular emotions. And so like the liver might pick up on anger and resentment, so you might store anger and resentment in your liver. And, the lungs carry sadness and grief. So if you notice you have things going on with your lungs and you really think about your life and what's going on, are you carrying some sadness and grief? So it's really a phenomenal process, because it's, like I said, it's a win-win. And when we are feeling stressed, our cortisol levels shoot up, right?
Yes.
And when our cortisol is high, it's hard to be in the moment, and it can be hard to think. It can be hard to make decisions on the fly. And not only that, but then our immune system becomes taxed, right? It becomes strained. And then, so we're not only stressed and strained emotionally now, but now we're stressed and strained on a physical level as well.
Exactly.
Right. And so tapping really helps to, my God, tapping really helps. Honestly, it really helps for anything and everything. I mean, it reduces stress, it reduces cortisol levels, it improves sleep, it can help your immune system, it can reduce your blood pressure, depression, anxiety. I mean, you name it. Like just about anything you can think of, tapping can help for.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I've when it comes to especially things like stress relief and anxiety, I've done a lot of these different modalities. I mean, I did yoga for many, many years, and I've even done meditation and things like that. And those things are fantastic, right? And I always say, absolutely do those things if if you're definitely into it. And the issue I have with it versus like a tapping issue is because sometimes with yoga or meditation and stuff, you have to do it for a long period of time sometimes to get that benefit. Okay. It is, you've got to practice for a while versus EFT. Like you said, you can do it in the moment, when the stress comes on, you can do it right there. And literally you can feel yourself starting to relax.
Totally.
And it's fantastic. Now it's interesting because when you're in that moment and you're in a stressful situation, it could be at your job, it could be wherever, there's that part of stress that kind of shuts off the rational part, right?
Yes.
But now, what would be your recommendation for people? Because sometimes people can't remember to actually do it in the moment. So
Right.
would you recommend any way that's how a person can actually even remember how to do it in the first place?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it does take a little bit of practice, because people get confused, and people are always like, but I don't know what to say. That's why they like to watch the videos and that sort of thing and tap along with me. But the truth is, it's always better if you do it on your own and come up with your own words, because you're the one who's experienced. So it's not about what I think you should, say or feel. It's about what you should think or say. But to get back to your question, once people do it more and more, I think people will remember to do it. But if people
Right.
are just starting out, when we're in a very stressful experience, number one, you could put reminders somewhere,
Right.
remember to tap. Okay.
Exactly.
One thing I always tell people to do, tap first thing in the morning. If you know that things are going to be stressful throughout the day, if you know you have a to-do list a mile long, if you're overwhelmed about a meeting, feeling fearful about whatever, and, getting together with somebody and that's going to create anxiety, or you have a project due, you got your kids, whatever it is. Tap in the morning, and the reason why I bring this up is because I think that it's so important to be proactive.
Yeah.
So that when you get in, obviously we can't see everything, right? We can't see how our day is going to go, and things just happen. That's just life. But if you can set yourself up for a good, successful, productive day, and setting out on a trajectory of being like the best version of yourself, or, just being able to manage stress, whatever comes up today, that's a great way to start your day. But in the moment, there are things that you can do. And one, even if you're under stress, we're kind of talking that you tap like this.
Right.
But honestly, you can even tap on the side of your fingers. Like if you're in a meeting, this is one of my best tricks that I tell people.
Really?
If you're in a meeting or in school and I know you have some listeners and not visuals, but tapping on the side of the fingertips, like under your desk, no one knows what you're doing. Or you take a pencil or a pen. Kids are always fidgeting, right? Or even adults are always fidgeting with their pen or with something. And you can actually just take your pen really gently and just tap on if you can see the insides here. Or you can take your thumb and you can tap on the inside of each fingertip like that. And that can work just as well in the moment. And no one even has to know what you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I've never seen that.
Yes, it works really, really well. And, we would, in terms of how to do tapping, or if you're in a stressful moment, you can always come back to it later. And, you can always, you just want to go back to it. You don't want to let it rest. So if you have an altercation, let's say you're at work, you got some stress, your boss is, writing you for something, and you walk away feeling this is so unfair and this person's against me, and whatever, or you got a big deadline due and you're just stressed, you can walk out of there and go to the bathroom even, or after work, you just go and you take a few moments and you breathe and you do the tapping. How we do the tapping is there are basically 3 parts to it. And so the first part is to talk about the truth. And some people will say, you're putting in the negatives, because we do verbal statements along with tapping, right? So we say things like, even though I have a lot of stress right now, I honor and accept myself, or I love and accept myself, that sort of thing. And then you do a couple of rounds based on what is the truth. So you might talk about, while you're tapping, you're going through, and we can do this together too if you want. But you go through all the points and saying things like, I have all this stress, I feel it in this part of my body, I can't believe so-and-so said this to me, I have all this pressure, whatever. And so you do a couple rounds of the truth of what's going on. And so people might say, well, why would I put the negative in? It's just like I'm talking about the negative too much, but you're thinking it anyway, right? We walk around these looping thoughts, we're just thinking all the negative stuff. So whether you're thinking it or tapping it, what difference does it make? And so the tapping actually works to neutralize the emotion. So it sends a signal to the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that sends us into fight or flight.
Yep.
Which, as you said, it's sort of that flooding that comes in when you're overwhelmed and you can't think straight. And so what tapping does, by doing this active tapping, you're actually neutralizing it. You're quieting it down. It's basically like saying, oh, right, this is what we're talking about. This is how we're feeling. And we're safe to let this go. We can let this go.
Absolutely.
So, and then we go through and we do some we insert some positive statements. So there's actually, sort of 3 parts to it, depending on what it is that's going on.
Great. It's funny because I've done it, like, even when I've had a headache, I've done it, and it took me a little while to figure out, you can actually do this for pain relief too, and
yes.
so, because the funny thing is, you would think that if you were thinking about the pain, that it would make the pain worse, right? But when you combine it with the tapping, it actually eventually starts to alleviate. And again, I've used it for headaches and backaches and things like that, and it's amazing how it actually works. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And so you wonder, like, why doesn't everybody know about this?
Right,
It could
exactly.
be free. I mean, unless you're dealing with trauma, then I say, absolutely, you got to work
Sure,
with somebody.
sure.
But for like the day-to-day stuff that creates stress, like why it's free, it's quick, it's effective. There's no reason not to do it. There's just no
Absolutely.
reason.
Why don't we do a quick round here just so we can demonstrate for the folks out there?
Sure. So before we start, I would have you just pay attention. We're going to sort of bring the physical and the emotional together so people can see what that's like. So I'm going to have anybody who's listening to just pay attention to any stress in your body. We all know what it feels like to be stressed. So I tend to hold stress in my neck and shoulders. Someone else might hold it in their lower back, upper back, maybe in their head, wherever it is, an elbow, whatever it is. So just pay attention to where you carry stress in your body or where you're feeling stress right now. And 0 to 10, what does it feel like? So 10 is like, take me off the planet, and 0 is I have no pain or stress or tension at all. And you feel like you're on the beach, in which case you can tap along anyway. But I'm sure someone has some stress in their life somewhere. Absolutely. So, and the reason why we rate it like that is because we want you to recognize where you are now before we start. And then when we're done tapping, we're going to go back and say, oh, okay, this, even if you start at like a 6 and you come down to a 4, you've reduced it 20%. Right. Or if you've started at an 8, you go down to a 2, you've reduced it, what is that? 60%. Right. So any reduction is going to be helpful, right?
Definitely.
And we want to help you to feel calm and relaxed. So let's tap. We're going to start on the side of the hand. So I'll say the points out loud because I know, I know that you have listeners. So the side of the hand point is between the pinky bone and the wrist bone, the fleshy part of your hand. And will you just repeat? You'll repeat after me? You'll be my echo?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Even though I feel all this stress and tension in my body.
Even though I feel all this stress and tension in my body.
I honor and accept myself.
I honor and accept myself.
And I'm open to letting it go now.
And I'm open to letting it go now.
Even though I feel tight.
Even though I feel tight.
Stressed.
Stressed.
Maybe in my neck and shoulders.
Maybe in my neck and shoulders.
My stomach.
My stomach.
Maybe my breathing is shallow.
Maybe my breathing is shallow.
I'm just noticing how stress shows up in my body.
I'm just noticing how stress shows up in my body.
I'm listening to my body.
I'm listening to my body.
Which is what my body wants.
Which is what my body wants.
And I'm open to letting it go.
And I'm open to letting it go.
And we're going to tap through the points. So we're going to go to the very top of the head. All this tension in my body.
All this tension in my body.
And we're going to tap over the inner eyebrow. I feel tension all over.
I feel tension all over.
And the side of your eye. And just noticing where I feel it in my own body. And under your eye, maybe my stomach is in knots.
Maybe my stomach is in knots.
And under your nose, neck and shoulders are raised.
Neck and shoulders are raised.
And on your chin, maybe I have heaviness in my chest.
Maybe I have heaviness in my chest.
And the collarbone point. The tension in my life is causing tension in my body.
The tension in my life is causing the tension in my body.
And we're going to tap under the arm point, which is a few inches down from the armpit. Stress is constant in my life.
Stress is constant in my life.
And the top of your head, and it's very hard to let it go.
And it's very hard to let it go.
And over your eyebrow, I'm in my head constantly.
I'm in my head constantly.
And the side of your eye. And these thoughts that I have create more stress.
And these thoughts that I have create more stress.
And under your eye, just can't seem to get away from it.
Just can't seem to get away from it.
And under your nose, I'm noticing it in my body.
I'm noticing it in my body.
And on your chin, stress in my life shows up in my body.
The stress in my life shows up in my body.
And the collarbone. All these circumstances I don't have control over.
All these circumstances I don't have control over.
And under your arm, I don't have control over what happens.
I don't have control over what happens.
And the top of your head, I don't have control over others' behavior.
I don't have control over others' behavior.
And over your eyebrow, or what's happening in the world.
Or what's happening in the world.
and the side of your eye. But I can control what's going on with me.
But I can't control what's going on with me.
And under your eye, it always starts with me.
It always starts with me.
And under your nose, I'm releasing all of the anger and the resentment.
I'm releasing all of the anger and resentment.
And on your chin, I'm releasing all the sadness and the grief.
I'm releasing all the sadness and grief.
And the collarbone, I'm releasing fear and worries.
I'm releasing fear and worries.
And under your arm, I'm releasing powerlessness.
I'm releasing powerlessness.
And the top of your head, releasing all these emotions from my body.
Releasing all these emotions from my body.
And over your eyebrow, I'm breathing.
I'm breathing.
And the side of your eye, just letting go for now.
Just letting go for now.
And under your eye, I don't need to carry these emotions with me anymore.
I don't need to carry these emotions with me anymore.
And under your nose, I'm having compassion for myself and others.
I'm having compassion for myself and others.
And on your chin, I'm releasing all the day's tension from my body.
I'm releasing all the day's tension from my body.
And the collarbone, letting go.
Letting go.
And under your arm, feeling calmer and more relaxed.
Feeling calmer and more relaxed.
At peace in my body.
At peace in my body.
And just tap the inside of your wrist together and say peace.
Peace.
Good. Take a big deep breath in.
Wow.
And that's just a quick version, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And even just doing that, and it's funny because I do it in the morning now, and because before I used to do it just when there was stress, or just when there was a headache, or just when there was whatever. So now I do it in the morning, and I've noticed again that it kind of sets the tone for the day for me, and that's what I need, because again, you know, especially when you have kids, you have all these things happening, all that, it can get crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, but it really sets the tone, and I I would tell everybody to definitely, if you can do it in the morning, or do it in the shower, or do it, because again, obviously life gets in the way, and and stuff like that. So even if you have a good 5 or 10 minutes, whatever you can in your day, absolutely try to do it.
Absolutely. And you just said the one thing I always recommend. Number one, do it when you get out of bed in the morning. Do it in the shower. No one's going to bother you there for the most part, right? But take the time, because tapping only works if you do it. Right. So if you don't do it, it's not going to work for you. And it doesn't have to take long. I mean, people do a workout in the morning. They might take an hour to do that, 40, 45 minutes.
Absolutely.
Which is also good for you. Don't get me wrong. But, if this is something, if you could take 5 or 10 minutes out of your day to change the trajectory of your day, so that you can set out to go out with confidence, and go out with, connecting with other people, connecting with yourself, feeling like you're in your body.
Absolutely.
Feeling like you can, be who you want to be for the day. I think it's worth 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, definitely. And right? it goes to this whole theme, you and I, in what we do, is we're empowering people to take responsibility. Whether it's on the nutrition side, whether it's stress relief, whether it's pain relief, or whatever. What we're saying is, hey, look, this is something you can do on your own, or even if you have to work with a practitioner, but you're still taking the responsibility to go to the practitioner, right? Just like somebody takes the responsibility to come to a nutritionist to talk about nutrition. You're saying, listen, I want to take this step to make myself healthier in general, because you don't want to leave it in the hands of pharmaceuticals or psychiatrists if you don't have to do that.
Right.
So that's it's overall it's empowerment, if you really think about it.
It absolutely is. And one thing I would say, you bring up such a good point with that. And one thing I would say is that if someone's listening and they just are feeling so overwhelmed with life, or so anxious, and they don't even know where to start, starting with this is one of the best ways you can start. Breathing is one thing.
Yes.
Breathing is a very, very simple way to start, right? Sometimes people get overwhelmed with even that, with just taking a few minutes and just being quiet in their body, and and breathing. But this is what's so great about tapping, is that it just brings everything together. And I have been a fan of meditation, but I am the type of person that I need movement. It's like, I get fidgety. I do.
Yeah,
I get really fidgety.
Right.
And so what I love about tapping is that you get that kinetic that
Yes.
kinetic energy, so that you're actually getting that energy out while
Right.
you are, I mean, there's definitely something for meditation, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
to
Sure.
be silent and still, there's
Mhm.
something to be said about that too. So I'm definitely not bashing it. I'm a big fan of it.
Sure.
But what I do like is that you are actually tapping on these points. And so you're moving, and it feels like you're being active with it or something.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So for anybody who just doesn't know where to start with this, I would say, just start. You
Yeah.
can't do it wrong, really. You
Right.
can't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it is like a meditation. And that's kind of how I use it, is like as a meditation, because I like it calms me, and it gives me that feeling like, oh, okay, I can start my day and I'm nice and calm. Because sometimes, you're thinking about what you're going to do the next day, and already you're starting to get tight in the morning.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this,
Right.
this kind of settles me down, and I absolutely recommend it. Um, in your practice, do you see the most people coming to you for anxiety and stress, or is it a combination of different things?
It is totally a combination of things.
Okay.
I'm grateful. Another reason I'm grateful to Dr. McCullough, amongst a lot of things, is that he really opened up this world of tapping for millions of people, because he
Mhm.
reached so many people. And I was lucky enough to be sort of the face of it initially.
Right.
Now it's grown bigger. There's a lot of faces out there, wonderful people out there,
Mhm.
Um, but because I had all these videos out there that had millions of views, and unfortunately, his channel on YouTube has been,
Yeah.
removed recently. But I still have my own channel with my own videos at this point. I'm still
Absolutely.
building on that. But um, that world sort of opened it up so that people saw that they could come to work with me for
Mhm.
emotional underlying reasons, and for physical pain and disease.
Mhm.
So I actually, it really, I mean, stress and anxiety is a huge one,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially now, in this year, the
Yes.
last couple of years, this has been a huge couple of years for people and really needing help. And I applaud people for going out and getting it, and mental health issues are becoming more and more widely
Right.
known and talked about,
Right.
which they have not
Mhm.
been in the past. And
Right.
so I see people for just about everything and anything. It just really depends on what people are coming to me for. But as I said, tapping works for just about everything. So we try it on everything.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's interesting because I was reading reading different articles, and they were talking about, even pre-COVID, they were talking about what the most common thing is that people go to an emergency room for, or go see their doctor for, and it's like 80% is like stress related.
Yes.
Is right. It's stress, and then
Yeah.
at a good, there's fatigue, and then in that fatigue is the stress, and sometimes the stress leads to the fatigue.
Right.
It's all, and this thing, a whole thing about the human body. The human body, at the end of the day, we talk about this on the show, I'm sure you talk about it as well, is the human body, it's one package. It all works together. Okay.
That's
It's
right.
And everything blends into everything else, the mind, the body, the gut, the everything. So you do have to, you have to look at that. And you know um again, stress reduction and all this is all part of that. So you always have to, again, take the responsibility and make sure that you're doing everything you can to treat this body, because the body's always what we call a homeostasis, right? The
Hmm.
body's always trying to get to homeostasis, always trying to heal itself. Part of that healing is also the emotional part, right? Again,
It's
it's
a
not just,
huge part. Right.
absolutely, it's not just the physical part, it's also that emotional part. Because and again, what I went through, part of the issues that I had when I was younger, because I was going through so much anxiety, so much
Hmm.
panic attacks, it that a lot of that led to a lot of physical problems. So I ended up getting sick a lot. I
Mm.
ended up with a lot of, sinus problems and bronchitis and stomach problems, especially the stomach problems, right?
Yeah.
So, then I had to heal that portion of it too. So, but I was, even with the emotional part, as I got older, I said, okay, I'm going to take a handle on this and figure out
Yeah.
how I'm going to deal with the emotional part. And even, and every now and then it would come out, the panic, the panic wouldn't want to come out. But when I started doing this, I was like, I can do this, because I don't want to take an hour to do something just to fix it at
That's
that moment.
exactly right.
I want to do something
Yep.
right here, whether it's at my desk or whatever it is. This
Hmm.
is what I want to do. So that's why it's greatly helped me, and I absolutely endorse it.
I love it. I love it. And the thing about stress and anxiety, it just wants to be heard. Your
Yes.
emotions and your feelings. That's the bottom line. Is that, I mean, I learned this when I was having panic attacks. Is that I was stuffing everything down.
Yeah.
I'd lost my father a year earlier and didn't
Sure.
really deal with that, and
Sure.
so I was just like walking around in a daze and
Mhm.
never really dealt with it. And so that's when the panic attacks start,
Yeah.
or amping up pain. It doesn't matter what it is we're talking about, but it just wants to be heard. It wants to be processed. And once you can go through it and process it and just either tap it out, work it through to, whatever it is, then
Mhm.
the energy can flow and it can actually move
Right.
out. And now
Yes.
you have repaired that blockage that was causing the pain,
Right.
physical, mental, emotional pain, whatever it is. Now you have it's like, whew,
Right.
it's just like it's gone. And then people are like, oh my God, I tapped on this issue of being angry with my partner, and now my shoulder doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I've seen, I don't even, thousands and thousands and thousands of people over 25 years,
Wow.
in a very busy practice. And I have just seen over and over and over again. It's just amazing. As I mean, you've done
Yeah.
this work.
Yes. Yes.
It's amazing what the human body can do. And it's amazing what it does when you tend to it
Yep.
and provide it with what it needs, you
Absolutely.
know?
In your practice, do you see people that, let's say, they may be dealing with an issue right now, but the tapping actually brings out something from many, many, many years ago when they were a kid, that type of
Oh,
thing?
absolutely. I have a great story about this if you have another minute about
No,
this.
sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I had a client a few years ago, and she was in her 40s, and she was dealing with some rosacea, some really bad rosacea.
Mhm.
But she cleaned up her diet. She took out alcohol. She was eating clean, clean, clean. And so it resolved to some degree, but it did not resolve. I think it was like her right cheek. It was either
Mhm.
right or left cheek. Let's say it was her right cheek,
Mhm.
and it just wasn't resolving. And I do muscle testing. I don't know if you talk about this on your
No,
show at all,
no,
but
talk about it.
okay.
Absolutely.
So muscle testing, kinesiology, you can
Mhm.
actually connect with your body. It's almost like a computer, right? So you can ask your body certain questions, and your body, it's connecting with your subconscious, really.
Right, right.
And so your subconscious will give you the answers that that you're looking for. So I use it a lot in my practice. And so I was doing some muscle testing to see if there was anything we were doing tapping. Sorry. So we were tapping, and she had something come up. I don't remember. But anyway, I did muscle testing to see like the concept of original occurrence
Mhm.
of when this emotion came up, whatever the
Mhm.
emotion was. And it was age 7. And so she went back. Oh, she's like, oh my God, first grade. She's like, she went to a Catholic school, and she was not good at math. Like she just
Mhm.
couldn't formulate. She just was not good at it.
Right.
And she happened to be at a Catholic school where, the teachers, sisters,
Mhm.
nuns were not
Right,
very kind. They
right.
practiced a lot of,
Sure. I know.
punishment. And yeah, so not bashing it, but
No,
there's yeah.
it is what it is.
So yeah, so she had a memory come up of she got something wrong, and the nun actually came across and slapped her
Wow.
across her right cheek,
Look at
and she
that.
went flying out of her chair. She went flying on the floor. So here she had shame, embarrassment. She lost all her self confidence. There were so many emotions around it. So we did all this tapping
Wow.
around that particular incident, and
Unbelievable.
it was gone. Never came back.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Never came back. And I had checked in with her after the fact to
Right.
be sure, because those are the kind of stories that you're like, this is you can't make this up,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You
And that's
can't
what
make
it's
it up.
all
It's
about,
amazing.
like,
Right.
wow, wow. Yeah,
Right.
because you don't realize that that stuff stays with you. It stays in that reactive part of your mind
Yes.
that it may trigger at some point later in life. It's whether it's a smell, or somebody says something, or whatever it is that reminds you, and all of a sudden that thing comes out,
Well,
right?
and what's funny, so the reason I was just going to say, the reason why she got triggered this much later in life, it was already, 30 some years later.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the reason it got triggered is because she had to deal with something at work that had to deal with math and numbers.
Look at that.
And she couldn't get it. She couldn't figure it out. And she was sort of being berated for it. And so all those emotions were, she got hijacked. That 7-year-old part of her became hijacked,
Yeah.
triggered.
Yeah.
And then the rosacea showed up. And so her body was telling her, you got to resolve this issue from age
Right.
7, first grade or whatever.
Mhm.
And she did. And then it was gone.
That's
I mean, the body is amazing what it holds on to, right?
yes, absolutely. And those are the formative years, they, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
Those are and again, I've talked about what I went through at those age. Those are those years where you're going to take all that information and you're going to go out into life with it. And, how you handle a situation is really created at that time, and, so if you can do things like this and you can come to terms with those things that happened at that time that you've been carrying with you, you're not going to believe how freeing it is. And I mean, it because you've seen it firsthand, and sometimes people who release something like that cry, right?
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen people cry
Yes.
in front of you
Oh,
releasing
yeah.
things. But it's such a powerful thing, but it's so necessary, especially these days, right?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. So I love that you are sharing it and you are getting it out there with the world as well, because nothing makes me happier than knowing that, people are, I mean, it's much more acknowledged and viewed as more mainstream as it was when I started doing this,
Right.
in the early 90s, for sure. So, yeah, so I love that you're getting it out there.
Yo, no, absolutely. I want everybody to definitely check it out because, and I'm even seeing it on like you said, the mainstream news now. They're
Yeah.
doing
The
stories about it.
Olympics. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. So I want everybody. Your website is julieschiffman.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I want everybody to check it out, and I'm going to let's see here. There it is, right there.
Thank
So
you.
I want everybody to check out Julie's website because it's a fantastic website, and I want you to go to her YouTube channel, and I want you to check out her videos because they are absolutely life changing. Because I'm telling you, like I said, this is where I started with it, and I've tapped along with Julie many, many times.
I'm very grateful for that.
And absolutely. So I would definitely recommend. So everybody check out julieschiffman.com and check out her
Thank
YouTube.
you.
Julie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program. I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing out
Thank
there. And, folks like me really, really appreciate it. And again, everybody check it out. And again, you're welcome to come on this program at any time.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love having the conversation, and thank you for all the work that you do putting out in the world, right?
Thank
We
you.
need more people like all of us. So
Absolutely.
thank you for
Absolutely.
that.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, take control of your health.